Welcome, everyone. My name is Mary Davis Fournier, and I'm Deputy Director of the American Library Association Public Programs Office. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us for today's online learning session. This session is Programming for At-Risk Tweens. It's being presented by ProgrammingLibrarian.org, a resource website of the American Library Association's Public Programs Office. And support is provided by the ALA Cultural Communities Fund. You will be able to find an archived recording of this session at ProgrammingLibrarian.org. And if you're interested in learning about other upcoming opportunities from Programming Librarian and the ALA Public Programs Office, you can sign up for the monthly Programming Librarian newsletter. That link is available on the Programming Librarian homepage. Before we get started, I'd like to just set out some basic information about communication in the online classroom. Then we'll move along to the main presentation. First, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please send a private message to our technical support staff, our Programming Librarian Editorial Director, Angela Hanshaw. Describe your problem in the chat message you send. To send this private message, just click on the name Angela Hanshaw that you see at the top of the list. And for most of you, it'll be on your left-hand navigation. And select Start Chat With. If you experience technical difficulties that are not resolved or that have to do with the connection on your end during the session, don't worry. The complete presentation is being recorded and will be available for download after the program's conclusion on ProgrammingLibrarian.org. We will have a Q&A period after the main presentation, but if you have questions during the presentation, please ask them in the chat box. Our chat moderators will be happy to help you, and any questions that are unresolved during the presentation via the chat box answers will be addressed at the end of the presentation. There's a handout for this webinar, and it is available for download. You'll see it in the lower left side of your screen. To download the file, which contains a Word document, just select Related Files and click on Save to My Computer. And now it's my pleasure, without much more ado, to introduce our presenters today. Ashley Miller is the Children's Department Manager at the Moore Public Library in Moore, Oklahoma, and Lenore St. John is Children's Coordinator at the Tulsa City County Library. Thank you so much for bringing us your expertise in this topic today, Ashley and Lenore.
All right, everyone, welcome to our presentation. I'm really glad that you were able to come today. I'm Lenore, and Ashley and I in this presentation will go over a few important aspects regarding programming towards a targeted tween audience, and basically the benefits that this type of programming has on not only the community, but staff, volunteers, parents, and tweens. We will also go over how to evaluate the impact that programming has by evaluating the importance of outcome-based programming and how to leverage results for future programming. And lastly, we will also use an example of one of the programs we implemented at the Moore Public Library and the South Oklahoma City Public Library called Masterpieces, and how to plan, present, and evaluate an outcome and outreach-based library program such as we did.
Hi everyone, this is Ashley Miller. Like Lenore said, we will be talking about the Masterpieces program, and I want to briefly just tell you a little bit about that. Masterpieces is a program that was designed for at-risk tweens, and it was a collaborative effort between the University of Oklahoma and the Pioneer Library System. So first, what we're going to do is talk about what we discovered going through the planning process of Masterpieces, as well as some of the research and the literature that we reviewed, and then we'll discuss more in depth the Masterpieces program. And before we really get started, I want to also discuss what an at-risk tween is. For the Moore Public School District, they are called Title I schools, and basically a Title I school is a school in which at least half of the student population comes from a home that is considered low income. And when that happens, a school receives Title I funding. And that's part of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. And the purpose of that is basically to close the achievement gap between low income and other students.
All right, let's talk about what is a tween. Let's go over the age group first. Tweens range between the ages of 7 through 12. And why exactly is it important that the public library offers programs for tweens? Well, they're a new demographic and they're characterized as the audience where library programs often have a gap in service. They are considered too young to participate in teen programs and too old for programs geared towards younger children, such as story time. Why is it important that the public library offer programs for tweens? Well, basically, when tweens do not get programming, they have a gap in skills as well. Research by Bishop and Bauer state that an effective library program for this age group should exhibit the following characteristics that we'll go over in a little bit on what's important about tween programming.
So, like Lenore said, there is a gap in service for tweens, but one of the things that we also discovered is what happens when tweens do use library services. So, there are a lot of studies that have been conducted about this aspect, and one in particular was conducted in Iowa, and they found that fourth grade test scores rose with increased librarian staff hours, increased hours of operation, and increased numbers of multi format, up to date print resources. Um, so I think we all know this, that libraries are really great, but it's good to know the research as well. Also, there was a study in 2010 that was conducted entitled Proof Positive, and in this they showed the importance of the summer reading program. What really caught my attention about this study in particular was that it followed third grade students from 11 schools in 8 different states, but all of these schools had a population of students greater than half who qualified for free or reduced school lunches. So essentially, these were Title I schools. And it showed that third grade students who participated in summer reading programs scored higher on reading tests at the beginning of fourth grade, and they didn't experience summer reading loss. They also looking times to offer. Also, a great opportunity to showcase your digital resources, such as databases, free ebooks, and all sorts of things that you might have to offer.
Okay, I don't think you guys heard that, did you? Okay, all right, I'm going to go over that again. Basically, we are talking about the skills that are important for developing successful habits in young adults. Bishop and Bauer stated that an effective library program for this age group should exhibit the following characteristics of being able to listen, speak, write effectively, use modern technology to locate information, the desire to become lifelong learners, the respect for the right and dignity of all people, and the self-confidence to believe that they can create a better world. That's all great, except how can we as library staff do that inside of the library walls? Ashley will go over some of the stuff that library staff and community members can do to ensure that these skills are developed in our tweens that are attending the library on a regular basis or even aren't really sure what's going on at the library.
Okay, I know that people are having some problem with the sound. Can people hear me right now, or let me know if you can hear me? Okay, good. It sounds like everybody can hear me, so send me a message if you can't hear me. Let's go ahead and talk about our next part of the presentation, which is what a tween wants. The first thing is that you need to get their opinion. An advisory group is a great way to find out what they think is interesting. Okay, I'm sorry. I guess we're having some problem with the sound. It's cutting in and out. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to keep on going and hopefully everyone can hear me. So what a tween wants, like I said, what's really great is if you can have an advisory group. That's a really good way to get their opinion straight from the source as to what they think is interesting and what they want to see. There was a study that a librarian did. She was a teen librarian and she was seeing really low attendance at her summer reading programs. And so she held an advisory group, and in that advisory group, teens suggested that the prizes be more worthwhile, that they were allowed to read what they wanted, and also that more awareness be created about the summer reading program. And she implemented the changes that the advisory group had come up with, and she saw a 130% increase in summer reading program attendance. So I think that really just goes to show how much influence an advisory group can have. Getting their opinions gets their buy-in, which again will mean higher attendance. Another thing that's really important is to let them be active. Tweens want to participate and take an active role during the program. They don't want to feel like they are at school or like they can't get up and participate in the program. Okay, tweens also want something that they can relate to. They want to be able to recreate or do what they did in the program at home. So one of the things that's really great is to try and use a presenter that they can relate to. We've really found that using college-aged or younger presenters allows kids to kind of see a role model. It's someone that they're close to in age, and someone that they can aspire to be. Another thing that's really great is to provide snacks, rewards, and giveaways in programs. So again, when you're targeting at-risk tweens, a lot of these children are not eating healthily at home, and some of them are even coming to the library for extended periods of time and not having anything to eat. So we've always felt that it's really important to provide some type of healthy snack during the program. Also, it's great to have activities where they can take the end product home. So a craft that they made in the program and then can take home and show to their friends and their parents is a really good way, honestly, to market and promote the next program that's coming up. They can show their friends and their parents what they made, tell them how fun the program was. It's also something that maybe they can do with their friends outside of the library. It's also really great to reward tweens for coming to the program in the first place. So having lots of games where everyone can win and take home a prize is always awesome. There are some things to consider when you are planning a program. Really important is the date and time that you're going to have it. So you need to keep in mind the schedules of tweens and their parents when deciding on a program date and time. Tweens will be in school during the day, and they often have activities in the evening. So 4:30 has been a time that's really worked well for starting a program for tweens. Another thing to consider is what day of the week you're going to do something. A lot of times people have commitments on Wednesday evenings with church, so we've traditionally not had programs on Wednesday evenings. Also, Mondays are a difficult day because everyone's just coming off the weekend, and so going to a program at the library isn't usually the first thing on your mind. Tuesdays and Thursdays have worked as really good days. We've also held programs on Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons, and parents have really spoken to how much they appreciate having something for their children to do during those times. The other thing to consider is the budget. So what we have discovered is obviously with the library you have a very limited budget, and great programs don't have to cost a lot of money. You can use your community resources, so seeing if local restaurants and shops will donate supplies to your program. Also, there are different organizations that will not only volunteer at your program, but they'll also provide funding. We've used Rotary in the past to help as mentors and help with tutoring and help with crafts and different things like that in programs. We've also recently partnered with Kohl's to offer a program in which they will provide volunteers and they will also provide some funding. So people in the community really do get excited about what the library has to offer, especially when you're reaching out to a group that is at risk or disadvantaged. The other thing to do is to get creative with presenters and with the supplies that you need. A lot of times when you do a craft or an activity, you can use low cost items you can get at Walmart and most people have at home. With presenters, again, I mentioned using college age students. Not only are they great because the students can relate to them, but it's also awesome because a lot of times these kids just want experience themselves. So they're usually willing to do it either free or at a really reduced cost. Final aspect to consider is marketing. So for the Masterpieces program in particular, we created a special invitation, and that had all of the program details, including the phone number for participants to call and register for the program. Creating an invitation really makes kids feel special. It makes something for them to remember and really makes them want to come to the library. For the Masterpieces program in particular as well, we contacted Title I and media specialists. So having a good relationship with your teachers, with your media specialists, or if you have Title I specialists, is a really great way to be able to identify students that would benefit from your program. And it's also really just a great way to get the word out to kids in general. So with the Masterpieces program, we were able to send that invitation to them, and they were able to identify the students and give them invitations personally, in which then the students called the library and got more information. Another great thing to do is to continue marketing once your program has started. So we sent out newsletters every week highlighting what we had done in that week as well as forecasting what we were going to do in the weeks to come to kind of build that anticipation and make people excited for the next program.
When developing a program like this, it is important to be able to evaluate the success of the program. And basically, we kind of had to change the way that we looked at how we planned and implemented a program. And by choosing a target audience such as at-risk tweens, it gave us a very specific audience to be able to measure our desired outcome. First, let's go over the difference between outcome and output. Output basically measures the volume of a program's actions, such as the number of people served and the activities and services that are carried out in that program. Outputs are really easy to quantify, but when trying to see if an impact was reached, such as at-risk tweens and seeing what things that they gained from attending this program, it's more important to really measure the outcome. Outcomes refer to the socially meaningful changes for those served by a certain program. These can be defined in terms of expected changes in knowledge, skills, attitudes, behavior, and condition or status. Patrick Jones is a researcher that states that libraries do not, should not, and cannot develop services for young adults because it's good for the library, but rather because these services will make an affirmative impact leading to positive outcomes for teens. There's a really good book also. It's called Leap of Reason, Managing to Outcomes in an Era of Scarcity by Mario Marino, and he basically discusses the different ways for nonprofit organizations to measure performance management and how to kind of change your ideas of evaluating programs for success through outcomes. Now, how do we outline the outcomes to measure? It is important to set goals that are in line with the system and branch goals that are specific and observable. This can be done by outlining characteristics, actions, or conditions that demonstrate whether a desired change has happened toward the intended outcome. Some of the outcomes that we measured were the correlation of library program attendance for targeted demographic and success in school, behavior and actions that were changed, and their attention span in class. We also measured the increased self-esteem as well as increased interest in subject areas. And another thing that we also evaluated was the increased usage and knowledge of library programs and services. I've also attached a copy of the questions that we asked students at the end of every program. We did this by doing weekly surveys. We surveyed the legal guardians, the participants, as well as the staff and the students who are involved in the library program. And the attached copy gives you the questions that we asked them. And we basically evaluated them on their current knowledge of library programs and services that were available to them, and then comparing those answers from the beginning of the start of the program to the end of the program. We also evaluated their perception of staff and the library's presence in the community.
Can you repeat the name?
I will in a second. Okay, this is what we did. This is our invitation to Masterpieces, and it is a program specifically designed for tweens between the ages of 7 and 14 who are enrolled in the Title I schools within the area. And we actually was an invitation-only program that we gave to the media specialists and prospective teachers in the Title I schools. And it was a 6-week program. We did it both at South Oklahoma City and Moore, and we're going to kind of go over some of the subjects that we covered to kind of give you an example of things that you can do in your library. For the first thing that we did at South Oklahoma City, it was a 6-week program, and we focused on community service, green initiatives, and technology. We were able to book presenters, and they shared their expertise on topics with the participants, and they had their opportunity to make their own masterpieces at the end of the presentation and present it to their parents and their friends at the last session. The really great thing about this program is we targeted it to SLIS students. The University of Oklahoma has a SLIS program, and one of the things that we noticed is that everybody within the library, has way too much way too many people that need us, and not enough staff to meet those needs. And we also had a lot of library students who wanted jobs in the library but didn't necessarily have the experience within the library to put on their resume when applying for jobs. So this was kind of a win-win opportunity that we thought would be a really great way for them to get the experience and for us to be able to take some of the burden off of staff that were working within the library, to allow the tweens that were at the library. We had a lot of behavior problems with some of the tweens that were attending the library on a regular basis, and we thought that it would be really great to offer a program that they really enjoyed and wanted to come to, and that covered things that they were interested in. So we were able to get with the SLIS students, and they were in charge every week to book a presenter, find food, and do a presentation that covered the subject that we went over that week. It basically started off as a really great idea, and then we realized that we needed to be able to evaluate the success of this program if we wanted to continue it. So we were able to receive approval from the Institutional Review Board in the fall of 2011, and it was designed with a threefold outcome. We measured the impact that this program had on tweens. We also measured the impact that this program had on OU SLIS students and their ability to plan their own programs and have more knowledge of library staff, services, and programs that are offered. We also were able to evaluate the community volunteers who were actually the Moore Rotary and Hillsdale Baptist College. They offered free transportation for us, and the Rotary Club also has a mission of promoting literacy within the community. So they were able to meet their goal of establishing literacy within the community. Basically, this program was designed to expose them to new and positive ways to spend their free time by introducing them to subject areas that they might not have been introduced to in school. A lot of these kids coming from an at-risk home, they were either having trouble in school, they weren't losing interest in outside areas because they didn't have money to go to extracurricular activities such as dance or sports. So this kind of gave them an opportunity to feel like something that they attended was their own. And we'll talk about some of the outcomes that we were able to evaluate through our surveys that we gave them at the end of every week. And Ashley and I are going to switch over and give you examples of some of the things that we did at each one of these programs. And these are things that you can do at your library too. If you don't have a SLIS program within your school, you might have a community group that does have a mission of community service or literacy, and you can kind of try to manipulate your way into getting these people to volunteer so that it's a win-win type of situation where they're getting the experience to help the community and staff is getting the opportunity to kind of take some of the the time that they don't have necessarily to do just another program, and making sure that when you do another program that it's something that can be evaluated and you can quantify what successes were met by doing this program.
Okay, so one of the things that we really felt would be important to do with the kids was green living and green initiatives. So we were able to, there is a food co-op in Oklahoma City, and we were able to have the owners of that come down and talk to the kids about sustainable living, growing your own garden, really just trying to live a green lifestyle. So they came down and they spoke to the kids about that. But what was really great is that we were able to have some some local nurseries donate seeds and plants. And then we were able to recycle our own items and use those as planters. So we had different things like milk jugs or large liter soda bottles, and we brought those in, we cleaned them up, and then the kids decorated those as plant holders. So the kids, they all got dirt, and then they got to pick out either a different vegetable or a flower or both if they wanted, and make their own, start their own flower garden or their own vegetable garden to take home with them. So not only was it creating an item for them to take home and continue doing once they left the library, they also got to start a garden at the South Oklahoma City Library as well. And it's really great because that garden is still there, and kids come by the desk all the time, and they'll ask if they can go out and see it and how it's doing. There were some vegetables that came from those plants, so it was a great way to kind of have the kids still interested in coming back to the library and seeing what they had done and the work that they had put into this.
One of the other topics that we covered was community service. Research shows the impact that community service and the ability to help others has on feelings of self-worth and positive attitudes. We covered community service over a 2-week period. The first installment of that 2 weeks was a high school art teacher came in, and the students were able to kind of create a mural, and it was huge, and it had things of Oklahoma. There was the Oklahoma musical that was at the top. They painted some buffaloes, and they had the Oklahoma state flag. And they kind of got to learn a little bit about the history of each thing that they painted. Each child was in charge of a different section. I know that we had done murals in the past, and it kind of turned into a mini disaster because we kind of just let it go for a free-for-all, but we kind of learned from that mistake. And when we did it this time with the art teacher, he made each child in charge of their own section, so they kind of got to feel a sense of pride in what they worked on, because it wasn't just like, oh, I did this whole mural. It was like, oh, I worked on the Oklahoma, I worked on the Indian paintbrushes, I worked on the Oklahoma flag, or I painted this cloud. So they kind of had a feeling of accomplishment when they were able to finish it, and it was done by 4 different sets of wood. And the whole reason that they were doing this piece of art was to donate to one of the local retirement centers. Rambling Oaks was in the South Oklahoma City area, and they had a memory ward. So we kind of talked about the importance of helping others and why we helped others, and why they thought that this would be a good thing to give to the assisted living center. And they all really understood that it was important for them to look back and feel like they were somewhere that they remembered and they knew, and they were able to look at it and maybe have some memories of their past. They also, when the next week, they had a bus come with all of the senior citizens that attend this assisted living center, and the children were actually able to read to their senior citizen. And this was one of the most touching things. It was something that we had first started, but when we actually saw the way that these children interacted with their senior citizen, it was absolutely beautiful. We had to step out of the room because it was so touching that they were just so caring. And at that time, we had a presenter come for the senior citizens and the students that were participating, and we wrote letters to the troops in Iraq, and we gave them hugs and little teddy bears that they could send in their care package. And hugs are the little ice packs on the back of that you put on your neck when it's really hot outside, and it sounded like they were actually giving soldiers hugs, but they were actually giving them the little ice-wrapped packs to put on their necks. But they worked on that activity with their senior citizens, so not only were they feeling a sense of accomplishment from doing something, but they were able to develop that relationship and connect with somebody that was a little bit older, and they just really appreciated that. And one of the things that we had asked them after the end of that program was, what are some of the things that you can do for people when you have the chance, and what can you do for community service in your area? And one of the little kids said, oh, well, you can just tie shoes for people that don't bend down too good. So we thought that was really cute. That was one of the answers that just tickled us. Another thing that we did, Ashley is going to go over that. I think she might be answering a question right now, but we also went over technology.
So this was one of the great ways that we were able to showcase the University of Oklahoma. So when we did technology, we had a professor come from OU, and he helped the kids make robots. So he came in and we talked about different types of robots, what they could do, and the kids were really excited about this. And so what they were able to build, they received all of the different pieces in a package. And so we went through step by step and made these little robots that followed light. Now, with this program, again, we were able to have the help of the University of Oklahoma School of Library and Information Studies students. And then we had library staff as well as different community organizations involved. So we had a ratio of adult to child participant of about one adult per one or two children. So that's really unique, honestly, for having a library program. I think we're usually used to having one adult in there with 20, 30, 40 kids. But with this program in particular, we were able to really kind of form that bond and work on things together one-on-one. So this project, the project, really did take that kind of individual time. It was kind of a tedious project, but like Lenore said with tweens, it went all the way down to age 7, and they were able to complete this robot and have it work just as well as any of the 12-year-olds were able to. So we were able to work on the project, and then we turned the lights off in the room. And the kids each had a little flashlight, and they could turn the flashlight on and they would move it around and the robot would follow the light. And it was so fun. I mean, the kids were working together to make little pathways and obstacle courses. And I think it was really rewarding for them. And it also really allowed the adults to foster that relationship with the kids, which was one of our goals starting out with this program. I know Lenore had spoken to a little bit that not only was this program reaching out to at-risk or Title I tweens, but it stemmed from some children that we had had problems, behavioral problems with at the library. And so having these projects that allowed you to work one-on-one with them really helped build that relationship with them. And with the kids in particular that had had some behavioral problems at the library when we started this program, by the end of the program, they're some of our best library helpers. They go around and they'll sharpen pencils, they'll help us turn off computers, they'll help us clean up at the end of the night. And I really do believe it's because we had projects like this where we could work with them one-on-one and get to know them personally. It really made us respect them and them respect us as well.
And just like Ashley was saying, it was in building these relationships that we were able to actually measure those outcomes. So when we were going to communities and presenters to ask for assistance in donating their time, donating their services, donating a specific food item, we were able to give them outcomes that we were able to achieve within the programs. So it was very targeted, and they were like, this is what you will achieve by donating your time to be a presenter. So we were actually able to get all of our presenters brought a lot of their own materials, and they did this out of the goodness of their own heart because it was something that they were passionate about. And I think there really are a lot of people in the community that are passionate about helping our at-risk tweens, and it's just kind of being able to have a good elevator speech and be like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to achieve, and how we plan on doing it, and how you can actually be a part of this. So one of the things that we actually did at the end of this Masterpieces program, I had mentioned previously that at the end of the program, the children were actually able to present their own masterpiece. So we have a More Monthly here at the More Public Library in the More community, and they do a TV channel that is just a local non-cable channel, and they have library commercials and stuff like that. And the producer of it was actually able to come to the library and teach the children how to edit their own videos. So they each got into groups of 3 or 4 and were given a flip camera, and they were prompted to make a short film on what their favorite part of the Masterpieces program was. So they all broke into groups, and they each had a different thing that they recorded, and they did these little skits on what they thought was the best thing about Masterpieces. And it was really touching because at the end of the program we had outlined, all these outcomes, that they had, an interest in a certain subject area, or that they now love the library and they're going to come to all the programs. But one of the outcomes that we hadn't even really established in this, one of the groups outlined it, and they said that the best thing that they liked about the Masterpieces program was the friendships that they made. And that's one thing that a lot of the parents said whenever we did surveys, were that a lot of these kids did not have friends in their school, and it was really great that they were able to make friendships outside of their school, because we targeted it to the Title I school, so it wasn't just one certain school that these kids were coming from. And the parents actually made friends with each other, because it was a very everybody built relationships in this program, and you really got to know the parents and the students. So now it's really nice when they come into the library, because the parents know the staff, they know the parents of the other children. So it was something that we didn't even establish as an outcome that we wanted to achieve in this program.
So one thing that we were able to do with our relationship with Rotary and with Hillsdale Hillsdale College, was to have their basketball team come to the library. So for a 2-week period, we focused on sports. And with sports, really, we're talking about just living an active lifestyle, and it really went along with our theme of being healthy, being active in your community. So the Hillsdale Baptist College came, and we went to a gym that was just across the street from the library, and they played a little exhibition game, and we got to sit with all the kids on the floor and watch them play and cheer for them, and it was really fun for them because I think they got to kind of show off their skills a little bit as well. And then after they did the game, they started doing some drills with the kids, and some of the kids were really intimidated by participating in a group activity, by playing basketball. So they really kind of were very shy at the beginning and stood on the side and weren't really sure if they wanted to jump in there. And by the end of the afternoon, everybody was playing. They were having such a great time. And I think it was just because not only were the librarians and the other, list students that were there, we weren't afraid to go up to the kids and grab their hand and say, come on, let's play. This is so fun. And it doesn't matter if you mess up. It's just a good time. But the basketball players were also really, really good with the kids at getting them to play, at passing nice and easy. And you can see in the picture here, he's lifting up one of the girls to dunk the ball. And that just turned into the best time. All of the kids started to ask if they could be lifted up as well to dunk the ball. And it was really a great way for them to build self-esteem and to get to know one another really well. So I think that everybody really benefited from this program in particular. The Hillsdale Baptist College, they had such a good time, and they told us that they would love to come back and do something like that again. The kids absolutely loved it, and they really were able to build some confidence, and it was really rewarding for us as well to see those kids kind of come out of their shell, and when their parents came and picked them up at the end of the day to talk about what a great time they had and how basketball is their favorite sport now. And I think this was one of my favorite weeks personally.
Another thing that we highlighted at the Moore Public Library was fitness, and we covered dancing. And if you notice in that picture, there are a lot of boys that were actually participating, and at first they were not having anything to do with dancing, but we actually had one of our local choreographers at Academy Artworks. He was Jamel Darby, and he was a one of the contestants for Say You Think You Can Dance, and he came in and he did not seem very prepared at all, and he was donating his time, but he ended up being amazing. He choreographed this routine for the children to learn, and they actually learned how to do the Dougie, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Dougie, but it is a popular dance move that I myself am not cool enough to do, but Jamel himself was, and the children loved it. And one of the great things that we found from, kind of being a little bit selective about our presenters, and we kind of covered this with our SLIS students because they were the ones that actually did the legwork for finding the presenters, but was getting somebody that could relate to these children. And the great thing about Jamel is he came from a broken home, and he didn't have the money as a child to attend dance classes, and he told the kids this. He was like, when I grew up, my mom didn't have enough money to afford dance class, and it was something that I was really passionate about, and he said that he learned how to do his dancing off of YouTube. And when we were evaluating the parents afterwards, there was this family of 4 that always came into the library, and the dad was saying how much the children really enjoyed that program because afterwards they would always go onto YouTube and try to make up their own dances, and it gave them something really positive to do over their spare time. It was something that they actually got really passionate about, and they would come to the library and tell us about the fun things that they were doing. So that was a program that turned out to be very successful.
Okay, and as a final wrap up on the Masterpieces program, at the end of the day, really what we had was so much fun. Like I've said before, we really got a chance to know each of the kids that participated in the program on an individual level. We got to know about what was going on at school, what was going on at home, what was happening with their friends. We see them in the library all the time. They come and stop by the desk. One of the great things as well is that kids that signed up for this Masterpieces program, we've continued to see them throughout the year and throughout the summer, and they continue to come to programs and bring other friends and other family members, and just we were able to develop a relationship with the parents as well, and let them know about all of the great things we have at the library, not only for their kids, but for them as well. The kids really, I think, were exposed to a lot of different subject areas that, because funding for schools is being cut, that they don't get a chance to do that much. They got to be active. They got to learn really cool dance moves. They got to play sports. Using the technology was amazing. Some kids were able to set up email accounts. They have the videos. There were just so many things. I feel like I could go on and on, but there were so many things that the kids were able to take away from this program. Every single kid at the end of each of the programs that we did asked us when we would be doing this again, and they were just so excited. And I think it just showed us the power that not only library programs have, but the power of being able to create that one-to-one experience where you really do get to know the students. Not only makes them better library patrons, but just makes them better community members, better citizens.
As Ashley was talking about this, these were some of the things that we got when we were evaluating the program, and we surveyed the legal guardians, the children, the Rotary volunteers, and SLIS students. So we had a lot of data when we were asking these questions, but it really allowed us to evaluate what was successful about this program and kind of tailor it. The first time that we did this program, it was not perfect. One thing that you have to remember when you're doing tween program is things that you think could never happen are going to happen, and you just kind of have to roll with the punches. But the second time that we did it at South Oklahoma City, we were able to learn from so many things and ask more direct questions. And when you're evaluating a program like this, it's really important to ask very specific questions to get meaningful answers, not just yes or no questions, but kind of find out what the kids think about the library, what they think about staff, and what they like about the library, and just kind of tailor it to what they need and what they want. Parents that were interviewed thought that Masterpieces was a positive impact on child's attitude because of the mentorship and the presentation of programs that were of interest to them. One parent said that their child was happier when they came home from Masterpieces and always looked forward to it. And another parent talked about how her son was always living in the shadow of his brother. And this was the one thing that he had that was his. You know, he checked out his books. He went to go meet his friends. It was his program. And it really gave him a sense of ownership. And he just felt that it was something that he could go to that his brother maybe wasn't a part of. So it wasn't like they were being, you know, it was an invitation-only program, but it wasn't like a punishment. It was something that they really looked forward to going to, and it wasn't something that they felt was an obligation and that their parents like made them go to this. It was something that they still to this day are like, are you going to do it again? Another parent also said that there was a dad and he had 2 children, and after we did the gardening program, they wanted to check out books on gardening and wanted to go to Lowe's and start their own garden. So that was something that he didn't know anything about because he was a single dad, and he was actually able to, you know, foster something that they did love and really enjoy doing, and it taught them how to kind of have a sustainable eating, which, you know, as much healthy food as we can get in little kids' tummies, the better. So basically, these are just some of the things that we decided to evaluate, but you can set your own goals and say what you want to evaluate. This is just an example of how to kind of look at programming just a little bit different and kind of measure those outcomes that you have determined previously, you know, before the program even starts, and kind of really think about what you want to achieve. Now, if you have any questions, I know Ashley's probably getting bombarded right now, but I think we have just a few extra minutes so we can open up the mic, and if you want to access those documents too, those have the questions that we asked the parents. But we'll go ahead and open up the mic right now since we do have about 10 minutes. And I want to thank you so much for attending our program. If you don't have any questions, then you're free to leave. But thank you so much.
I just want to echo what Lenore said, that this program was so rewarding, and so thank you so much for listening to our experience and the process that we went through. I think that Demetria had a few questions. She was asking about, was staff cooperative in terms of, I'm unsure if you mean like covering the desk while we had this program going on. What we would do is we would schedule hourly staff to, which is not full-time, but hourly staff to cover the actual desk, and then Lenore and I would be in the room when the program was going on. I think everyone was really on board because they saw the improvement in the children's behavior that did attend the program. So really, I think the entire library was behind us with that one. And I think there was another question. Yes, Lenore, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, one thing that Ramona asked was how we got them excited to get them there to the program. And one thing, that was a conversation that we actually had with our media specialists and teachers that we gave the invitation. We wanted to ensure that this was a special program and that they were actually picked because of their interest in like the subjects or something. We did not advertise that this was targeted for at-risk. Like in no way, shape, or form did these children know that they were being targeted because they were considered at-risk or that they attended a Title I program. If you want, I didn't even think to attach those letters, but when we wrote that letter, we basically were like, your child is being chosen because he attends this school. And it made it seem more like it was the school that they went to as opposed to being targeted by their media specialist. And it was just basically how the media specialist and how those teachers kind of presented the program. And they did emphasize that it was invitation only, and we really did talk to the parents. Like, we had a phone list of them. We called them every single week beforehand to remind them that the program was going on so that they had that accountability. You know, it was somebody that really wanted them to be there, and we did notice if they didn't come. And I think that might be something that they might not be used to feeling. And we made sure that it was fun, and it helped that we fed them every time, because a lot of times having it on a Friday or a weekend like a Sunday, which were the 2 dates that we chose, they are on free and reduced lunch, and they have backpacks that they take home. So this was food that they were able to take home, and if we had extras, we let them take home those extras. And I was so surprised at how these kids were like fighting over food. So we always made sure to have extra food as well.
I saw a comment about what about middle income tweens. So that's one thing sometimes we talk about at the library, is that we aren't just here for those that really, really need us. We're here for everybody. So again, this program was specifically designed for students that attend Title I schools. But I will say that I am so surprised at how many families have students or have children that attend Title I schools who you might not necessarily think, oh wow, they really need a lot of help. A lot of these are what I would consider middle income families. So we did not tell anybody that wanted to be a part of the program that they could not attend, but this program was specifically designed for those who attended schools with low income families. I would definitely think that anyone would be interested in attending these programs, so you don't necessarily have to tailor it to that group. You could just have an invitation for media specialists to give out to any of their students. You could have an invitation at the library that you hand out to kids that come in all the time, or for anybody that comes in. I don't think it has to be tailored to that group. That's just something that we did in particular.
Jasheen, I see that you had a question about how big our library was. Moore is actually a large library, but South Oklahoma City, we started this program the first week that we were open, so we had 0 patrons. And this was kind of a really great thing, because it was a new library, and you might be able to start a program like this. I know you said that your library is very, very small, but that doesn't mean you can't outreach to your community and give invitations out to your schools in the area, and that might be a really great way to involve some people that might not even be aware that the library has programs like this that are available to them.
Sorry, I saw a part of a question that I might not have answered completely. Something about kids that don't want to behave well. I think Lenore and I really feel a lot that it's not so much that the kids don't want to behave, it's that they're doing this because they don't get attention. There were kids in particular that before this program started, we knew a little bit about their home life, and it wasn't good, and they aren't getting the attention or the resources that they need at all to be successful. And I really think that by creating programs that they thought were interesting, because a lot of these things were their ideas, it got them in the program. And then once they were in the program, we had kids that, on week 4, they were still having behavior problems in the program. They wouldn't want to participate necessarily, or they would do something that was out of line. And it was continually working with them, letting them know when they misbehaved, but also letting them know that we wanted them there, that we valued their opinion, that we thought they were great kids. There was such a tremendous change in their personality. So again, I think it's really establishing that relationship, and it's kind of coming up with projects that force them to work with you. When you guys have to work together on something, it really does help foster that bond and that relationship.
And one thing I also wanted to add, the book that I had mentioned about measuring outcomes and outputs, it's not something that I actually quoted in our slide, but it is helpful to kind of understand how to even think about measuring programs a little bit differently, and that's Leap of Reason, Managing to Outcomes in an Era of Scarcity by Maria Marino, and I'll type that on the text box right now.
If anybody has any more questions, we have just a minute or 2 left. If you want to go ahead and type those in right now, we can answer anything.
And I'm just going to break in for a moment and encourage everyone to fill out the survey that you'll be receiving about today's session. You'll receive it sometime tomorrow morning. And when you get that email, if you can take a few minutes and share your feedback on this webinar with us, it would be tremendously helpful to us as we plan future webinars. Thanks.
I think there will be a link to the presentation whenever it's posted with the audio. The presentation will be linked with it as well.
All right, well, it looks like there aren't too many questions left out there. Thank you guys so much. Again, I'm really sorry that we had all of those sound difficulties at the beginning, but thank you so much for sticking with us. And, if you have any questions, you can always email Lenore or myself. Please take a look at the presentation that'll be posted tomorrow if you weren't able to hear everything that we had to share with you today.
And thanks again to Ashley Miller and Lenore St. John for sharing their experience with us and providing this really wonderful overview of programming for at-risk teens. And thank all of you for joining us this afternoon.